All right, Yanni, we got a lot of stuff today on the agenda for today's Toasty Tuesday.
Yeah, it's like a lot of random topics coming together. It's pretty cool.
I know. I'm excited for this episode. So just a quick overview of what we got going on. We got some Mortal Kombat Generations news, and John Tobias has been answering a lot of fan questions. So that brings some new insight into the Mortal Kombat lore. Yeah. And then there's some new news about the Mortal Kombat Kompendium that I think is pretty cool and our fans are going to be excited about. So let's jump into this. Mortal Kombat Generations. All right. So for those of our fans who listen to our podcast regularly, the Realmcast, you know that we recently interviewed Garrett Warren, the director for Mortal Kombat Generations, which is also the third season of Mortal Kombat Legacy.
Which is what he actually did the stunt coordination for in season 2.
That's right. And that is an awesome interview. So if you haven't heard it yet, I recommend that you go back and check out that interview because it is full of mystery, intrigue, assassinations, femme fatales. It's such a good episode. So I recommend it.
Yeah, it's a super cool episode, honestly. So much. It was a lot of fun. It was, I think we said this previously, but it was, I think, one of our favorites to do, and that's saying something.
So unrelated to all that, we got some big generation news this week. And I think pretty much everybody has pinged us or left comments on our videos asking if we had heard the news.
Which we appreciate.
Yes.
And you say unrelated? I don't think so.
It's unrelated. It has nothing to do with our interview.
I don't know, man. I mean, to me, that's a huge coincidence that it suddenly gets found after our episode with Garrett Warren.
Okay, I'll say this much. Garrett had nothing to do with it.
Oh, that I'm sure. Well, we
yeah,
actually
I'm just going to put that out there. Basically, an unfinished edit of Mortal Kombat Generations was finally leaked. It appeared
found rather.
Yeah, it's interesting what happened. I mean, first of all, we got pinged up by Tabmock, I think was the first person who I noticed had sent it to us and asked if we had seen it. And, we jumped right into it and started looking at it. Did you watch the whole thing?
I did. I mean, after everything I've been through waiting for Legacy Season 3 and then everything that we went through, I was so hyped to watch it. Like, completely raw footage, but it was still cool to check out.
Yeah, and I was able to confirm from one of our sources, even the editing wasn't complete on that version. So it is very raw. And the main criticism was on it that this doesn't seem finished. Well, it's not. But besides that, I mean, it was great. How many chapters were actually in that thing?
I mean, we'll probably spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but there were, I think, 3 or 4. So we started off with Johnny Cage training Cassie as a little girl.
Johnny Cage being played by Casper Van Dien. So that was awesome to see him reprise his role as an older Johnny Cage.
From season 2.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. It then moves into Johnny going to visit Shang Tsung, who was played by
Cary MF Tagawa. So Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa playing Shang Tsung again. And that, I think that was probably one of my favorite parts of this Generation series was seeing, I mean, it's always great to see Cary Tagawa playing Shang Tsung, but this role that they had him in, he was basically captured by special forces and was being used as a a confidential informant in giving up information that was taking them nowhere. And I just love that kind of back and forth between Johnny Cage and Shang Tsung just basically playing everybody. And like, as you're watching it, they're all getting played and they don't really have a choice. So it was a great little setup in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he exudes the Shang sort of flow, right? So that was really cool. We then get what is, in my opinion, a very weird scene again with Johnny, where he ends up at a sort of underground fight club.
Why was it weird?
Well, I mean, it's let's go with the sort of theme of the fight club. It's just random lighting and stuff, and like almost like it was moving towards a sort of cyberpunk sort of look. But the weirdest part for me was when we get Ferrator showing up.
Yeah, I don't understand why Ferrator was at the fight club, but it's obvious you've never been to a fight club because this is how they are. All the underground ones, all the best ones underground are like this.
So you have been. Tell us more.
They'll have good cyberpunk style. I mean, that's a given.
Ferritor coming out
they all have Ferritors.
Ah, of course. I should have known. This is on me.
I liked the Ferritor. There's been criticism about it. People have said Tor looks like 1990s Bane from the Batman movie, and Farah looks like some full-size Asian woman riding on his back.
But this is before editing, right? We do have to remember that.
It is. And it was a little disjointing, but at the same time, it didn't feel that far of a stretch.
No, see, the stretch for me was, I guess, the setting. Like, why is Ferritor in this random fight club, you know? But the scene, the fight itself was pretty cool. You could tell that there were some effects missing from, say, Johnny's like shadow kick and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, I would have loved to have seen this whole thing punched up and became something better, but at least we got this much. So I'm happy, and I just wish WB would release the Warren cut.
Hashtag release the Warren cut.
Yep.
I mean, well, we then get the scene with Lewis Tan as Kung Jin.
Yes. Yeah, Lewis Tan. This is the same Lewis Tan that we're seeing in the upcoming Mortal Kombat movie, playing Cole Turner. This is him. This is his first Mortal Kombat role, and you get to see it. We finally get to see it. This is amazing, in my opinion.
This is obviously where he impressed, if he was able to have made it into the movie, right? As a protagonist.
Oh, yeah. And, Garrett even talked about the fact that Lewis had made it into the new Mortal Kombat movie and how excited he was for him. So it's cool to kind of finally see that footage come to light. And of course, there's still some stuff that we haven't seen that we know from leaked photos in the past. And that is Scorpion is somewhere in this series, as well as Aaron Black. And Aaron Black seems to be being played by Ray Park, who played Darth Maul in the original Star Wars Episode 1. So there's a lot of stuff that's still missing. And as we've stated, this is all unedited footage.
But let's continue with what we actually get to see in it, because a certain character shows up who, in terms of casting choice, is probably my first and I suppose only sort of disagreement. It's Eric Roberts as Bo Raicho.
Yeah, that was unexpected. And he seems to be playing more of a Raiden /
from Conquest kind of role.
Yeah, a Jeff Meek Raiden.
Yeah, which is cool.
Which, I mean, yeah, I love Jeff Meek, but I didn't expect Bo Raicho to be in that position or that role, to have that same characteristic.
Yeah, before we then see a grown-up Cassie with Jackie Briggs on what I understood to be, I think, was a sort of test mission, which actually turns into a proper mission.
Yeah, so, okay, when you say grown up, I mean, they both seem like they're 13 years old. I don't know how old these actresses really were, but it's kind of cool to see combat kids that aren't, fully fledged Mortal Kombat X combat kids running around doing stuff.
I was going with more that she's grown up since that first scene with Johnny when he's training her.
Oh, yeah. Right. She's no longer 8 years old or something. She's now 13 or 14. She's still a little girl, but she's running around doing badass stuff. So.
I'm not sure what age range I'd put her at, honestly. I would say in the teens for sure. Sonya does actually show up as well, telling them to get out of there. I don't know. This is you can definitely tell, if not from the rest of the footage, but from this specific scene, that this is unedited. This is completely raw, because you have gunshots not making sounds, etc.
And then there's another little cameo at the end that we're not going to spoil, because it is worth a watch if you're a big Mortal Kombat fan.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it, actually. But check it out, guys. We'll leave a link to it. It's really cool. I still think that this is not a coincidence, based on the attention that the recent attention of MK Generations. I would like to say that, I don't know, because this footage has actually been around apparently for the past 4 years, but is it really a coincidence if nobody has found it up until now?
Maybe not. I guess we'll never know.
This is the MK community. If something is out there, somebody will find it.
That's true.
And it would not take them 4 years to figure that out.
So if you haven't seen it yet, it's now officially out on the internet. So I recommend finding it and watching it because it's worth the look, and it's more Mortal Kombat content. And at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants, is more Mortal Kombat. So
We'll
check it out.
leave a link to it in the description.
So if you want to see the rest, and if you want to see this as an unedited version, send out some tweets to Warner Brother, like, petition for this, release the Garrett cut. This is, I think it would be great to see the whole thing. Like, from what I've seen so far, and even from our interview with Garrett Warren, like, they put a lot of time into this, and they put a lot of time even to making video game accurate costumes and things like that. And I would like to see the whole thing released as an edited version, because we know it exists, we know it's out there, we know it's finished, but it's just not being released.
Which is a shame, because as you just said, a lot of work was put into it. So let's get everybody on it. Like, tell WB that you want to see it, and don't hold it to such a high standard. Bear in mind that it's also still extremely raw footage.
Yes, yeah. So when you do find it and you watch it, whether it's through our link in the description, or if we have to remove that for whatever reasons and you find it somewhere else, keep in mind, this is raw. This is unedited. We've verified that it is not what the final version would be. So it's worth a watch but keeping that in mind.
So, moving into John Tobias's recent tweets, we're getting a lot of background info from him lately, which, as always, is awesome to see.
Now, do you want to kind of let our new listeners who may not be familiar with old school Mortal Kombat know who is John Tobias?
It's scary that I have to say that, but sure, let's go with that. So, for the uninitiated, I'm assuming you all know who Ed Boon is. He is the co-creator of Mortal Kombat. The other co-creator is John Tobias, who left the series many years ago.
That's right. And that's where the name Noob Saibot comes from. The mixture of Ed Boon's last name and John Tobias' last name. And they slammed down, flipped it, and reversed it. And so you got Noob Saibot.
I've always thought, like, even prior to the sort of negative, quote-unquote, connotation behind the word noob, I've always thought that Tobias had the cooler backwards name, I gotta say.
When in like Mortal Kombat, what was it, Deception, when they just removed Saibot completely and called him Noob and Smoke, I was so disappointed, because I would have rather it said Saibot and Smoke or something like that, because it's a cool name.
I totally agree. Yeah, like when it just became Noob, I was like, no, it's cool and all, but no, it needs to have Saibot in there.
Yeah.
Noob, the original Noob.
So there have been a lot of fans asking him questions lately, and he's been extremely responsive. And it's given us a lot of insight into the background of Mortal Kombat and kind of where the series was headed back before he left the series and before he kind of removed himself as the story architect of Mortal Kombat.
It's so cool that he is still so involved, though, in the sense, like, even disregarding the fact that he might not be answering all the questions, the fact that when he does answer some questions, he definitely shows that he still retains that knowledge and that passion.
Oh yeah, he deep dives into these things and gives so much background. The first one that we're going to reference today is actually by one of our listeners, Dave Savage, 1982, and he says, there's a discussion on the lore of Mortal Kombat in regards to the invitation of Earth Warriors. Can you offer any knowledge? And yeah, John just dives right in and kind of blows the door open up on the original Mortal Kombat.
Which is something that you and I have actually discussed in the past. I think it was around the time when Scorpion's Revenge was released, and we were discussing how the quote-unquote invitations took place for the Warriors.
Mm-hmm. So he clarifies things and says that he didn't Shang Tsung never actually chose anybody to compete in the tournaments. He just sent out the invitation to chosen warriors throughout the different realms, and the warriors were chosen by the elder gods, not by Shang Tsung. So that puts a lot of clarification on that. And then something that I found interesting is he said that originally they didn't refer to the tournament as anything other than the Shaolin tournament, which that traces back to Mortal Kombat 11 and our discussions on Mortal Kombat Aftermath on the Realm cast, where we were talking about how the different monks in Aftermath, it turns out that the monks that were on Shang Tsung's island are actually Shang Tsung's monks. But according to the original lore and the original idea for this, at least, was that they were Shaolin monks, as everybody had presumed. So that's something that's kind of changed over time, as well as everything else in Mortal Kombat. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's definitely interesting because you can say that it has changed over time, which is technically true. Yet at the same time, we are getting some background on this from literally the first game. So technically, it's not actually changed over time. It's just always been this way.
Yeah, it's always been this way until Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're Shang Tsung's monks and no longer Shaolin monks.
I feel like that's just down to not understanding the material, which, to be fair, it's quite difficult to get all of this straight, you know? I mean, we didn't know all of this until literally February 15th because of John Tobias's tweets. It was really just stuff that we could really have a sort of guess at. But one thing
if only they had some kind of encyclopedia or compendium of all Mortal Kombat knowledge.
Hey, that's a great idea. Have you heard of anything like that?
I have. Let's talk about that in a minute.
No, but one thing that I really did like about John Tobias's tweets was the sort of explanation as to Shang Tsung's character, because he states that his soul-stealing power was meant to imply that he literally sold his soul in exchange for the immortality that he enjoys. And I love that sort of metaphor, you know?
Mm-hmm. And then he also gives some background on where Shang Tsung comes from. So he is actually from Earth in the original idea, and one of his parents was from Outworld and one of his parents was from Earthrealm. And so he's kind of considered the Earthrealm traitor for his actions.
That is something that I didn't see coming, because in pretty much every form of media, Shang Tsung has been an Earthrealm native, just turned Outworld. Even MK1, I would assume. Like, they never specifically stated that he was from Outworld in MK1, as far as I remember, at least.
Yeah, and so this whole idea is that he betrayed Earthrealm and basically went to Outworld and started fighting for them, and then he was the champion until the great Kung Lao came along and beat him, and that's when he went back to Outworld and found Goro and came back and decimated Earthrealm with help.
You beat me? All right, here's this big four-armed dragon being.
Like, that's petty AF.
I do like that he references Mortal Kombat Conquest, actually. He discusses how the show actually explores events after his victory, showing that Shang Tsung was imprisoned in the Cobalt Mines, etc., etc. And then it says, quote, "It's deep lore." And that, for me, is confirmation that we can take some of the things in Conquest as sort of canon.
That's cool, yeah. Especially the Cobalt Mines and its effects on Quan Chi.
Cobalt.
Oh, and again, that's another throwback to one of our Realmcast episodes where we interviewed Donnie Maropis, who played Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat Conquest. Another great episode worth checking out. And I'm really not meaning to bring back so many of our Realmcast episodes, but there's so much news this week that kind of ties into stuff from our previous interviews. So if you haven't had a chance, check them out. They're on iTunes, Spotify, and on our YouTube page, so you can listen to our full Realmcast episodes on there.
So continuing with the knowledge of characters from over the years, John Tobias then actually tweeted out some information on Kabal.
That's right. So the real Kabal, tagged at the real Kabal, went ahead and sent Tobias a message and said, "Did you ever imagine Kabal would gain this level of popularity? Would be nice to gain your insight." And then, of course, posted some pictures of Kabal, who's going to be appearing in the new Mortal Kombat movie, as well as some 3D statues and stuff like that have been created from him.
Yeah, he looks really cool in the movie, by the way. It's very MK11 inspired, I would say. But
I like it. He's
really
got
awesome.
He's got like a little air hose connected to his mask and everything.
You mean a respirator?
Yeah, exactly. he's social distancing and wearing his mask. So
doing it properly. I swear, if I could get one properly made, I'd be wearing that during this time. You're gonna have to beep yourself out, by the way.
Pretty sure you can. I think there's some 3D ones being printed.
It's quite difficult over here.
Yeah, and so he went and gave some answers on that. Do you want to go over them?
Yeah, so basically, Tobias answers a couple of questions, saying another follower recently asked if it was our intention for Kabal to become a vigilante, as his MK3 ending suggested, and he says yes, that was the idea. So Kabal was initially a member of the Black Dragon, And the idea behind him was that they didn't want him to sort of be this pure evil character. They wanted him to be sort of conflicted, right? Which would then lead into the possible future of him becoming a vigilante, as would be the case with his MK3 ending. Now, Tobias says in the original timeline, this happened pre-MK1, before Kabal suffered his burns from the Shao Kahn's forces. And he states that they did not want to actually explain how he became disfigured. They wanted to keep that as well as the fact that how he or why he was wearing a respirator and everything. They wanted to keep that as sort of unsaid because they liked the mysterious aspect that added to his character. And that is definitely something that I felt when playing Kabal in the Mortal Kombat 3 era.
Oh yeah, people presumed that he was a bad guy, and then when you found out through story mode that he was not really such a bad guy, it was, that's what was great about Mortal Kombat 3, is it kind of played on your idea of a character. You would look at Sindel and think, oh, she's bad because she looks bad, and then come to find out she is not. She is actually the person who saved her entire realm by killing herself. So there's all these like red herrings throughout Mortal Kombat 3 where you presume something, but then you find out that it's the other way around when you start diving into the lore of the game.
Is that a little dig at MK11's treatment of Sindel? I love
it. I think I used the exact quote from the from the reveal of Sindel also. So.
But speaking of Kabal, I remember something from over the years where I'm not sure if it was Ed or if it was Tobias, but they were talking about how they really wanted to get Kabal to have a sort of trench coat in MK3, but they couldn't make it work with the software limitations back then. And so that once they managed to get him into Deception and then the later games, they were able to give him that sort of trench coat look. And that was, in my opinion, his coolest look, right? Which sort of followed him back into MK9. And that's why I'm kind of confused to see how Kabal ended up looking in MK11. Although I feel like the retcon as well as his lore is an indication of the fact that they weren't sure as to who they were working with.
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
But one of the cool little facts from this tweet is that Tobias confirms, as we have known from the past anyway, that Kabal Super Speed was inspired by Ed's love for The Flash.
Yeah, which is really cool if you think about how NetherRealms managed to pick up series like the Injustice and things like that. And, imagine creating your own character because you like a character so much and then getting to actually work on the character that you originally loved. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine how over the moon Ed Boon was feeling when he was able to do MK versus DC.
Yeah.
I do love this tweet. We got a tweet from at also16bit, Stephanie Brownback, where she said, Kabal absolutely rules. And at 20 Art responds, so much that Dom retconned him heart emoji. Oh.
I did not see
I love
it. Yeah.
So the next tweet was related to Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and the Lin Kuei, actually. This is something that people would probably find quite interesting, and it's related to the actual origins of the clan itself.
Yeah, that's right. So he basically kind of said that it was all inspired from a book that he found at some martial arts supply store in Chicago way back in the day called China's Ninja Connection. And the book kind of went through and told the story of this ninja clan called the Lin Kuei, who were vagabond assassins from China, and they basically were the precursor to the ninjas of Japan. And he goes on to say that, this book is probably not factual. He calls it the dubious nature of the book's author and his claims, but it was enough to inspire them to make the Lin Kuei for Sub-Zero.
I like that he's included a couple of doodles. He shows off a Lin Kuei ninja. I mean, if this is from back in the day, these are pretty cool designs, honestly. So he has a picture of a ninja saying Lin Kuei ninja, which in my opinion solidifies the fact that the Lin Kuei were originally meant to be ninja, despite the I am not a ninja from Bihan, as well as the the old debate as to whether or not the Lin Kuei are actually ninja. But he says the actual identity of this warrior is unknown. However, based on the markings of his uniform, it is believed he belongs to the Lin Kuei, a legendary clan of Chinese ninja. Bam, again. But he then has another doodle where, first, it's got a picture of Raiden looking pretty awesome. And I must say, looking at Raiden in this doodle, Raiden, like, even now, they managed to capture Raiden perfectly back then and continue to do so even now. It's quite crazy to me to think about
That's a good point.
how long ago this was, you know?
I love Tobias's original artwork, like, even from the original Mortal Kombat comic book. His designs really shine through his artwork.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's managed to capture Mortal Kombat characters the way that he did.
Totally agree. I mean, he really captured what was the essence of Mortal Kombat, and that makes sense. It was his creation along with Ed Boon's, right? The themes and everything were pretty much down to his decisions. He even says that in this tweet thread where he says, given our mystical martial arts themes, and my love for 1980s Sho Kosugi ninja films, a masked ninja was a natural character choice for us. And you can tell that mystical martial art theme was really demonstrated through the series, at least up until his departure, or even for a while after it, until maybe the reboot era, where it started to get a bit more special forces focused. But back to the doodle, related to the actual relationship between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, he specifically has it written down that Ninja 1 is the hunter and Ninja 2 is the hunted.
You know, I've always read that as ninjai and ninjas. I always thought, this is just the characters they originally had, or the names they had for them.
Okay, yep, no, you've solved it. That was it. I'm wrong.
Yeah. So ninjas ended up becoming Scorpion, or ended up becoming Sub-Zero, and ninjai ended up becoming Scorpion.
But it's really cool to see him take us through this little sort of backstory, you know?
It is.
Explaining that Sub-Zero's Lin Kuei were ninja by a different name, and then fueled the rivalry with what would become the Shirai Ryu. So that's pretty awesome.
And also making, the Chinese ninjas and the Japanese ninjas a thing in the Mortal Kombat lore straight off the bat. Like, it's things like this that have stuck around and have made Mortal Kombat such a fan favorite. It's little tiny details that John Tobias had originally developed. So I love everything he did. I wish he still had some involvement in Mortal Kombat, to be honest.
Yes, I mean, and the story would greatly benefit from his return, whether it be the story itself or even if he was just in charge of, taking care of certain characters' lore and such. I really feel like it would become a lot more cohesive than what we've seen in the latest couple of entries or so.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on, we also have Tabmock99, which you might have seen his most recent episode where he kind of dove into this question a little bit more. And I can't help but feeling this question was inspired by our conversation on the last Filmcast.
It's not that you're going to say you can't help but feel, because he specifically shows a clip of us talking about this.
So last week we were debating on whether or not Sonya's power came from her gauntlets or if they came from some kind of arcane
source
thing that she had inside of her. Yeah. And we didn't have a good answer there, but Tabmock went ahead and reached out to John Tobias, and Tabmock made a whole video on this, on where this power comes from.
It's a pretty cool analysis, by the way, so definitely check it out.
It is. And just to give you a quick breakdown, because we don't want to take too much from Tabmock's video, but he didn't really have an answer.
Well, I mean, even if we're not going to get an answer based on what it is now, we did get a sort of answer from Tobias himself, which I guess, spoiler alert, proves me correct and FANTiM wrong. So what he does...
Nope, we didn't get an answer. Episode finished. Moving on.
One thing I like about this sort of tweet thread is that he doesn't just talk about Sonya, he kind of explains what goes into the design of all the characters, or at least did go into the design. And he mentions that they tried to tie projectiles to a character's theme, giving the example of Sub-Zero's ice and Raiden's lightning. But then there were certain characters such as Sonya or Johnny Cage, where they sort of just went with the sort of like just giving them a projectile rather than tying it to them in some way. He gives us a bit of a background on the actual development of Sonya's energy ring, and I think you want to discuss this.
No, actually, I think if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about it, I think you should check out Tabmock's video. He breaks it down quite extensively based off of these tweets by Tobias and kind of incorporates some of the previous things we've seen over the game. So let's leave a link to that in the description.
I like how FANTim's trying to end it before I prove him wrong. So before we do that, Tobias says, Sonya, in my mind, Sonya's ring pulse was a manifestation of her chi, but we never really articulated that. I also think the concept of her bracelets being military hardware strengthens her characterization.
And then he says, sorry, I'm not going to solve your debate. So fight on, people.
That is what we're doing. You know what? I think we can find a happy medium here. So the original aspect, based on this last tweet that we just read, the original idea behind it was that it was a manifestation of her chi. But the concept of her bracelets being military hardware strengthens her characterization, correct? So why not meet in the middle where it is a manifestation of her chi, but the military hardware strengthens her actual ability? Hey, I'm doing this for you, man.
No, you're still wrong. So last up today, we have some exciting news from Uppercut Editions, who are creating the Mortal Kombat Kompendium. So, we've given them shouts out quite a bit because what they're doing is amazing. As we were stating earlier, it would be great if there was a Mortal Kombat book that had every bit of lore ever, as well as every character, something that somebody like a game developer could reference and know exactly what's happening with Mortal Kombat. But they have some exciting news this week.
So they have a Kickstarter on the way, as we've previously mentioned, and I'm super hyped for the Kickstarter itself. But one of the things that they have just announced related to that Kickstarter is one of the products for one of the tier rewards.
That's right. So they have gotten artist Pasha Rampage, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, to come on board and offer some of the
early backers.
Yeah, for the early backers or the higher tiers. And he has designed a Cyrax in the sand statue, which I'm sure that's not what it's actually called because of, copyright issues and stuff like that. But
it's obviously inspired by that.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
It looks so good.
Yeah, I think it's one of my favorite Mortal Kombat statues I've seen out there. It's awesome.
For those of you who've played the older games, you will remember that Cyrax was in the background of Jade's desert, although we never exactly got confirmation on why Jade had a desert named after her. But it is definitely a callback to that, and it looks super cool. I cannot describe how beautiful the detail looks.
Yeah, and being a Kickstarter exclusive, Cyrax has this gorgeous gold sheen to him, and just I love it. I don't know what else to say about it, but it's cool.
So go on, grab one. Go show your support for the Encyclopedia's Kickstarter, the Encyclopedia team themselves. Tweet them out, say get some activity going, because I really think that in addition to this amazing statue, the book itself is what would be so beneficial to the entire community, especially the team themselves behind the games.
And we have verified with Uppercut Editions that this is an exclusive gold variant of this statue that's only going to be available with their Kickstarter. So make sure you're following them at Encyclopedia MK on Twitter and the Mortal Kombat Encyclopedia Project on Facebook, because I'm sure they have more updates coming up as this Kickstarter gets closer and closer to its actual launch.
So in addition to the actual statue announcement itself, they have also announced some pretty huge news demonstrating that this is not just a lot of hot air being blown out with regards to activity, but they have a publisher.
That's right. Hagen's Alley, which have published quite a few different game books in the past, have picked up this encyclopedia, and they're going to be creating the book itself for the Kickstarter. And one of the coolest things that I found out is that it is going to be a hardcover book that we're getting, which it's just, I can't wait to have it in my house. And you've seen so many different YouTubers talk about the demo versions of this book that they've received in the past and how great it looks. So I'm excited to see this finished product, because from what we've seen so far, this is a great book and it's going to be great to own.
Just for the lore alone, for the book itself, this thing, as you just said, looking at like past reviews of the actual book, it looks amazing, and that's not even in its finished state. Imagine when it's actually completed.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So be sure to follow them, because I'm sure they got more news on the way, and we're going to see more of their tier list kind of get revealed as we get closer to the Kickstarter date.
So thanks for joining us on this Toasty Tuesday. Let us know what you think of the topics from today, whether it be that you really enjoyed the Generations leak, or Tobias's tweets, or the amazing statue from the Encyclopedia's Kickstarter. We're looking forward to bringing you the next episode of the Realmcast coming very soon, which is a big one.
And speaking of the Realmcast, we've had a lot of people ask us lately if we're going to get Todd Garner or Greg Russo onto the show. As you know, they have contractual agreements with Warner Brothers. So if you are interested, start reaching out to them on Twitter and tagging us, let them know that you want them to come onto our show, and we'll see if we can set up an interview for you guys.
Yeah, we'd love to have them on. We think it would be an amazing discussion, especially fitting considering the way that we have sort of covered most of the movie news over the past few months. It would be really cool if we could get them on, and right before the actual movie releases too. That would be pretty cool.
So if that is something that you're interested in, let them know, and we'll see if we can get that set up for you guys.
To keep up to date with us, please like, follow, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell and all, so you can see when we're going live. Thank you very much.
Thanks.